Songa chenga weze lenga lenga weka nukta. Songe ngenga ngenga kujitenge tatu shusha. Weka nukta.
Shukuru tumetunuka bahati ya amani. Basi tuombe nuru hata tuangazia tagizani. Na wala sijuti kuzaliwa Tanzania. Sijuti, sijuti, sijuti.
Tanzania ndio nchi yangu. Maadili, weledi, roho ya taifa langu. Uzalendo ndio dira na mwongozo wangu. Nchi yangu kwanza, mengine baadaye.
Tuna deni kubwa na kazi hii lazima tuifanye. Kwa ujasiri mkubwa tuifanye pamoja na mikono tushikane.
Gomvi wa vyama mimi naona hauna maana. Tunajenga nyumba moja sasa kwa nini?
Kiona tunayumba ujue tunawasahau wahenga. Tanzania ni kama nyumba, wote tuna haki ya kujenga. So siache mlango wazi ili mgeni apishe hodi. Vizazi na vizazi vifaidi matunda ya kodi.
Najivunia Tanzania wenye power. Na uaminia huu upendo ndio dawa. Tushikilie na usiponyoke, right?
Urafiki wetu uendelee. Udugu wetu usiangamie.
Tusimame pamoja kwa lolote lile. Taifa tulinde vyovyote vile.
Urafiki wetu uendelee. Udugu wetu usiangamie. Tusimame kwa pamoja kwa lolote lile. Taifa tulinde vyovyote vile. Alichokupa Mungu usikifungie. Kilio chafuka na kisikie. Unaweka kucha nywele za saluni uvutie. Yatima kafukuzwa kwa mama ntilie. Jukumu langu nawe tungamane. Halotupa karima. Sisi yake tuitende kwa mioyo yetu yote. Nchi yetu kwa pamoja tuijenge. Kama baraka tutapokea tukifanya kazi. Mungu bariki wanaopiga kazi. Tanzania ni fursa, wengine ni vita. Vita vya siasa visiturubuni. Muda ukishapita haurudi wengine. Nchi tuijenge sasa. Mambo yakiharibika ni kazi nyingine. Yarudisha kuwa sawa. Utumwa kukana nilipozaliwa. Nasipo tayari. Najivunia kuwa Tanzania. Kwa yoyote hali. Taifa langu nijenge. Tanzania. Mwe tungu tuombe.
Kama kuzalwa nimezalwa Arusha pale. Ila kuoa nitaoa Zanzibar. Amani yangu nalinda kwa sila kale. Daraja mbili, hey, wala Somali.
Sijuti, sijuti, sijuti.
juu tunaenda juu wote sawa sawa, tukienda chini twenda chini wote sawa sawa. Shika langu na shika la kwako sawa, changu kwanza chuki zako kaa nazo, mimi kando na uzalendo ndo mpango. Yeah.
Kumekucha, tukaweze kwenda jenga future. Songa chenga weze lenga weka nukta. Songe ngenga kujitenge tatushusha. Weka nukta.
Shukuru tumetunuka bahati ya amani, basi tuombe nuru hata tuangazia tagizani, na wala sijuti kuzaliwa Tanzania. Sijuti
Tanzania ndio nchi yangu, maadili, weledi, nguvu ya taifa langu. Uzalendo ndio dira na mwongozo wangu. Nchi yangu kwanza, mengine baadaye.
Tuna deni kubwa na kazi hii lazima tuifanye kwa ujasiri mkubwa, tuifanye pamoja na mikono tushikane.
Gomvi wa vyama mimi naona hauna maana, tunajenga nyumba moja sasa kwa nini?
Chona tunayumba ujue tunawasahau wahenga. Tanzania ni kama nyumba, wote tuna haki ya kujenga, so siache mlango wazi ili mgeni apishe hodi, vizazi na vizazi vifaidi matunda ya kodi.
Najivunia Tanzania wenye power, na uaminia upendo ndio dawa. Tushikilie na usiponyoke, right?
Urafiki wetu uendelee, udugu wetu usiangamie,
tusimame pamoja kwa lolote lile, utaifa tulinde vyovyote vile.
urafiki wetu uendelee, udugu wetu usiangamie, tusimame kwa pamoja kwa lolote lile, taifa tulinde vyovyote vile. Alichokupa Mungu usikifungie, kiliochafuka na kisikie, naweka kucha nywele za saluni uvutie, yatima kafukuzwa kwa mama ntilie. Mola mimi nawe tungamane, alatupa karima. Sisi yake tuitende kwa mioyo yetu yote, nchi yetu kwa pamoja tuitende. Kama baraka tutapokea tukifanya kazi, Mungu ubariki wanaopiga kazi. Tanzania ni fursa, wengine ni vita vya siasa visiturubuni. Muda ukishapita haurudi wengine, nchi tuijenge sasa. Mambo yakiharibika ni kazi nyingine, yarudisha kuwa sawa. Utumwa kukana nilipozaliwa, nasipo tayari najivunia kuwa Tanzania. Kwa yoyote hali taifa langu nijenge Tanzania, wetu kuombe
Kama kuzalwa nimezalwa Arusha shambani la kuoa nitaoa Zanzibar. Amani yangu nalinda kwa silaha daraja mbili, hey, wala Somali.
sawa sawa, tukienda chini twenda chini wote, sawa sawa, shika langu na shika la kwako, sawa, changu kwanza tukizako kanazo, mimi kando ndo salendo ndo mpango,
umekuja tukaweze kwenda jenga future, songa chenga weze lenga weka nukta, songe ngenga kujitenga tatushusha, weka nukta.
Tushukuru tumetunuka bahati ya amani, basi tuombe nuru atatuangazia tagizani, na wala sijuti kuzaliwa Tanzania. Sijuti
Tanzania ndio nchi yangu, maadili, weledi, roho ya taifa langu. Uzalendo ndio dira na mwongozo wangu. Nchi yangu kwanza, mengine baadaye.
Tuna deni kubwa na kazi hii lazima tuifanye kwa ujasiri mkubwa, tuifanye pamoja na mikono tushikane.
Gomvi wa vyama mimi naona hauna maana, tunajenga nyumba moja sasa kwa nini?
Kiona tunayumba ujue tumewasahau wahenga. Tanzania ni kama nyumba, wote tuna haki ya kujenga, so siache mlango wazi ili mgeni apishe hodi, vizazi na vizazi vifaidi matunda ya kodi.
Najivunia Tanzania wenye power, na uaminia upendo ndio dawa, tushikilie na usiponyoke, right?
Urafiki wetu endelee, udugu wetu usiangamie,
tusimame pamoja kwa lolote lile, taifa tulinde vyovyote vile.
urafiki wetu endelee, udugu wetu usiangamie, tusimame kwa pamoja kwa lolote lile, taifa tulinde vyovyote vile. Alichokupa Mungu usikifungie, kiliochafuka na kisikie, naweka kucha nywele za saluni uvutie, yatima kafukuzwa kwa mama ntilie, Mola nawe tungamane, halotupa karima. Sisi yake tuitende kwa mioyo yetu yote, nchi yetu kwa pamoja tuijenge, kama baraka tutapokea tukifanya kazi. Mungu bariki wanaopiga kazi. Tanzania ni fursa, wengine ni vita vya siasa visiturubuni. Muda ukishapita haurudi wengine, nchi tuijenge sasa. Mambo yakiharibika ni kazi nyingine, yarudisha kuwa sawa. Utumwa kukana nilipozaliwa, nasipo tayari najivunia kuwa Tanzania, kwa yoyote hali taifa langu nijenge. Tanzania wetu tukombe,
kama kuzalwa nimezalwa Arusha pale, la kuoa nitaoa Zanzibar, amani yangu nalinda kwa sila kale, daraja mbili hey wala Somali.
Tukenda juu wote sawa sawa, tukenda chini twenda chini wote sawa sawa. Shika langu na shika la kwako sawa. Changu kwanza chuki zako kanazo, mimi kando na uzalendo ndo mpango.
Umekuja suka weze kwenda jenga future, songa chenga weze lenga weka nukta, stronge ngenga kujitenga tatushusha weka nukta.
Tushukuru tumetunuka bahati ya amani, basi tuombe nuru hata tuangazia tagizani, na wala sijuti kuzaliwa Tanzania. Sijuti
Tanzania ndio nchi yangu, maadili, weledi, roho ya taifa langu.
Hon Nape Nnauye, Member of Parliament, Minister for Information, Communication and Information Technology of the United Republic of Tanzania, all ambassadors present here, Hon Mondli Gungubele, Minister for Communication and Digital Technologies, Republic of South Africa, Hon Moses Kunkuyu Kalongashawa, Minister for Information and Digitalization, Malawi, Hon Wole Saya Duna, my apologies if I haven't pronounced it well, Minister for Post and Telecommunication, Liberia, Hon Dr. Chris Barimuns, Minister for ICT and National Guidance, Uganda, Honorable Dr. Khalid Salum Mohammed, Minister for Infrastructure, Communications and Transport, Revolutionary Government of Zanzibar, Honorable Engineer Kundo Andrew Matthew, Member of Parliament, Deputy Minister of Information, Communication and Information Technology, Mr. Celestine Kakele, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Minister of Information, Communication and Information Technology, United Republic of Tanzania, Permanent Secretaries of Ministries responsible for Postal Sector from PAPU member countries here present, Mr. Masihiko Metoki, DG UPU, Mrs. Sandra Shibonge, Chairperson of PAPU Administration Council, Dr. Sifundo Chief Moyo, SG PAPU, Madam Jessica Hope Sengoba, Assistant Secretary General of PAPU, Chief Executive Officers, Postal Master Generals of the designated postal operators and Director Generals of regulatory authorities, representatives from restricted unions present here, and those who are following us online, associate members and observers present here and those following online, members of the media, invited distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today we are going to have the Ministerial Roundtable, and before we begin, which will be handled by my colleague, my co-director of ceremony, we will have a very short, soft opening. And without further much ado, I would like to invite the SG PAPU to give his welcome remarks for honorable ministers and all those who are present here. Dr. Moyo, please.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. The Honorable Nape Moses Nnauye, the Minister of Information, Communication and Information Technology of the United Republic of Tanzania. Allow me to say all protocols observed as I write on the already established protocols. The Director of Ceremony has been very clear that he wants a soft opening, which means my 4-page speech, I may need to send it on email, as I'm restricted to only a paragraph. It is our deep gratitude that we have our leaders of the sector, honorable ministers, we have excellencies, ambassadors that represent our countries here in this beautiful country. We have CEOs, we have director generals, and we have partners led by their respective leaders. The Universal Postal Union, led by Mr. Metoki. We also have in the room the former Secretary Generals, Mrs. Rhoda Masaviru, if you could just stand and wave. Yes. During her time, she was a very tough woman when she was Secretary General. And she comes from Kenya. Then we have Mr. Yunus Jibrin, from Cameroon, a very caring brother of mine. And we welcome every other person that I may not have mentioned by name. This is the very first ministerial round table meeting that we are having as the Pan-African Postal Union, and we are delighted that our ministers will get an opportunity to share with us their views on important strategic issues, and also get an opportunity to listen to our to experts from the industry as to what is happening in other parts of the world, so that together we can help to build our postal sector. I can see my staff, the way they are looking at me. I forgot to acknowledge my staff. Guys, can you wave wherever you are? They are led by the Assistant Secretary General, Jessica Sengoba. She is in the team there. So, ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I would like to end here and thank you all for coming and wish you fruitful deliberations. I thank you.
SG, you tried, but you took my 2 minutes away. Thank you, Chief Moyo, for the welcome remarks. Now, with all due respect, may I invite the Director General of UPU to give us his welcome remark. Please.
Good morning and Jambo. Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, dear participants, friends, I am delighted to address you today in the AICC Deep Memory during this Ministers' Business Roundtable. Thank you for organizing this important event and inviting me, UPU, to participate. It is an honor for me to be in your presence and to hear firsthand your perspective on the future of postal service in Africa. Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegates, the UPU's current development cooperation strategy prioritizes working closely with government, more concretely ministries. First, to understand national policies affecting the post, and second, to foster decisions that recognizing a postal network as basic human network infrastructure to the socio-economic development of countries. This forum provides a valuable platform for you, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, to share your vision and insights on the strategic realignment on the postal sector and the digital era. More than ever before, the Post finds itself at a turning point as the bulk of its business is being defined by technology. At the same time, this new frontier has added much values for the industry, which is why we need forums like this who want to share best practice and define future strategy in an inclusive manner. The UPU will work together with decision makers like honorable ministers in Africa to help revitalize the postal sector in the region through digitalization, innovation, and capacity building. We believe that apart from being a profitable business, the Post has a unique capacity to help nations achieve inclusiveness in various areas of the economy for the benefit of citizens. Thank you, Honorable Ministers and the distinguished delegates, to your participation. I also wish to thank the PAPU General Secretariat for organizing the event and again inviting the UPU to participate. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Asante-san. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masahiko Metoki, the DG of UPU, for your remarks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, invited guests, honorable ministers present, may I now take this opportunity to invite the host minister, Honorable Nape Moses Nnauye, to give us his welcoming remarks before we begin. Let's clap our hands while he's coming on the podium.
Honorable fellow ministers responsible for postal services from PAP member states present here, may I acknowledge the presence of everyone and say all protocols observed because of time. Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to Arusha in Tanzania. Before I give my few words as a welcoming note, I wish to express this, that it was organized that this morning we could have the minister responsible for foreign affairs to come and give the opening or welcoming remarks. Unfortunately, 3 days ago there was a cabinet reshuffle, and she was appointed as a minister for defense, and we have a new minister for foreign affairs. They all wished to come, but this morning they have a swearing-in ceremony in Zanzibar. And after that, maybe they will join us tomorrow. And fortunately, me and my team, we survived the cabinet reshuffle. And my friend from Uganda was asking, how did you survive? I said, everyone here wished me to be here, so that's why we are here. So thank you for your good wishes. And when I say we survived, me and my deputy minister who is here with us, and our permanent secretary, but also our deputy permanent secretary. So looks like we are there to stay. Dear friends, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all to Tanzania, and Arusha in particular, as we have come to witness the outstanding milestone of commissioning the PAP Tower. As part of the inauguration ceremonies, a decision was made to organize this ministerial roundtable so as to share experiences and also reflect on the role that postal services in our respective countries may continue to play its fundamental role by contributing to a sustainable development. Although this is not a statutory meeting, I am confident that the takeaways from these discussions will offer us an opportunity to further deepen the solid foundations through which our postal services will continue to thrive and flourish. Myself being a minister to such a demanding portfolio, I fully understand how busy the schedule is in running the daily affairs of a ministry. Therefore, your presence here today, my fellow ministers, shows the commitment you have to the cause. For sure, me and the organizing committee, we don't take it for granted. Thank you very much for coming to join us here. Honorable ministers, we are gathered here today for a significant occasion, the official opening of the PAP Ministers Roundtable. This forum serves as a platform for ministers responsible for postal services from PAP member countries to come together, exchange ideas, and discuss matters of mutual interest in the postal sector and regional cooperation. It is a testament to our commitment of fostering a strong relationships and finding common ground in pursuit of shared goals for our services to our citizens. Honorable ministers, I now have the distinct pleasure of extending an invitation to you, our esteemed guests, to a dinner tonight, which will take place here in Arusha International Conference Center. We will be having for you a lot of Tanzanian cuisine and a wonderful evening, which I encourage you that you should not plan to miss. As you are aware, tomorrow will be a special day for PAP family. The inauguration of PAP Tower is a significant event to us. The United Republic of Tanzania President, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, will be our guest of honor tomorrow. I kindly ask you, oh dear, my friend, ministers, but everyone here, that we plan to attend this event. Thank you, and may this PAP Minister Roundtable be a fruitful and productive gathering for all of us. Thank you for your attention. You are warm welcome to Arusha. Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Napen Nnauye, for your welcoming remarks. And I'm not supposed to give any vote of thanks or what, but please don't miss tonight. Last week we had a good dinner, and I can tell you, some of your delegates are here, but I'm not telling you to do any disciplinary action. because they love Arusha. The food, the music, you live with memorable memories, if that is English. Thank you very much. Honorable ministers, now have the pleasure of introducing two people who I'm glad they are here today. I want to acknowledge the presence of two past SGs of PAPO. First, Madam Rhoda Masavira, famously Mama Rhoda. And then the immediate past SG, Yunus Jibril. Thank you very much for coming. Now, without further much ado, I would like to welcome my colleague, the Director of Ceremony, Mr. Oyuke, to proceed with the panel discussion. Please, Mr. Oyuke.
Thank you very much, co-pilot, Mr. Mungi. You said I proceed with the panels. Very unfortunate I will be not part of the panels. My duty is very simple. Honorable Minister and distinguished delegates, the first panel is on investment opportunities in the postal sector in Africa, and this panel will be moderated by Mr. John Omo. Mr. John Omo is the Secretary General of the African Telecommunication Union, ATU, the African Union Specialized Agency for Telecommunications and ICT Development in Africa. Mr. John Omo has 31 years of experience as a lawyer and has contributed immensely to development of local and international policies, legislations, agreements, and treaties in all areas of public service life, but mainly in the area of ICT. Mr. Omo was recently awarded the Global Merit. All right. That was the last para, and he stopped me at the last para. Thank you, Mr. John Omo. Welcome. And you have to welcome your panelists. I'm ushering to you to the podium to welcome your panelists.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our host. I had to stop you because I'm not the speaker. I'm only moderating. Honorable ministers, thank you very much for being with us here. It's good to see you again. Without much ado, I think we are starting almost an hour late, and so allow me to welcome to the stage Honorable Mondli Ngubele, my boss from South Africa. He pays me a salary every month. He hasn't defaulted. Honorable Minister. Let me also welcome the Honorable Minister, Moses Kunkuyu. Moses has also not defaulted, so pleasure to share the podium with you. Let me also welcome Mr. Saiwa Duna, the Honorable Minister of Post and Telecommunications of Liberia. Honorable Minister, if you can join us here. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Certainly last but not least is Mamadou Sodi, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Post and Telecoms of the great footballing Republic of Cameroon. Thank you very much. I'll just give you a minute, each of you, to introduce yourselves. The speakers are next to you, so starting from South Africa.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. The leadership of Tanzania and the congregation of ministers from all countries of our continent. My name is Mondli Ngubele, the Minister of Communication and Digital Technologies in South Africa, and thank you for the opportunity for being here.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister Kunkuyu from Malawi.
Thank you very much, Moderator, our Secretary General, our host minister, and all colleagues. My name is Moses Kunkuyu. I'm Minister for Information and Digitalization from Malawi. Thank
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Saiwa from Liberia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Wally Sewaduna. I'm the Minister of Posts and Telecommunications, Republic of Liberia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. PS Cameroon.
Thank you, the moderator, for giving me the floor. My name is Muhammadu Saudi. I am the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications, Cameroon. In addition, I'm also the board chairman of the Cameroon Telecommunications, the incumbent operator.
Thank you very much. Once again, my name is John Omo, the Secretary General of the African Telecommunications Union. And the African Telecommunications Union is a specialized organ of the African Union that is in charge of ICT's development in Africa. We separated with PAPU when, through the structural adjustment programs, the posts and telecoms were separated about 27 or so years ago. And so we have the posts as we know them today, and we have the telecoms as we know them today. If you've been around for that much long, you know that the posts and telecoms, so whether in Tanzania or Cameroon or Liberia or Algeria, was more of, I would say, almost equivalent to government. What we called the posts and telecommunications then was almost similar or synonymous with government. Over the years, of course, we had the structure adjustment programs and we had the separation. So telecoms went their way and postal services went their way. Before we get into that discourse, allow me to welcome our presenter, Victor Del Tola, or Nayemi, from Trademark Africa. I hope he's in the room. Victor is in the room. And so Victor will give us a bit of a perspective and a background to this before we get into the discourse of how we've seen over the years undercapitalization, especially in the postal sector of the business, and how governments can assist, recapitalize, re-energize the postal systems for purposes of serving our people. So Victor, the floor is yours. If you can give us, how many minutes do you want?
Very short.
5. Okay, make it 4.5.
Sure. Thank you very much. A huge pleasure to be here. My name is Tola Onayemi. I'm an international lawyer by background. Currently advising on the negotiations for the Digital Trade Protocol, which is supposed to help make Africa a single market for digital trade. And what I'll spend a few minutes this morning talking about is the FCTA Digital Protocol, the post and inter-African trade. I'm sharing my screen, so it should be pretty easy to follow through. But I'll just try to have take you through some of my thoughts around how the post remains one of the most important infrastructure on the continent for creating wealth and for creating inter-African trade. Okay, I'll just get through this. So I think I'll start with this, and I think this is a very important slide to start with generally. This is the global economy today. 105 trillion, right? When you think of that global economy as 105 trillion, the US alone constitutes about 25% of the global economy, right? It's 26.9 trillion. China is about 19.4 trillion of the global economy. All of Africa is less than 3% of the global economy. It's somewhere at that lower corner, right there, right? And this is where it starts from. Now, but the question here is, when you think of population, Africa's population is just as big. Africa's population is about 20 to 30% of the global economy. When you think of mineral resources, Africa contributes a bigger chunk of it. And when you think of the question of why does Africa contribute less to the global economy, the reason really is trade. is that we don't trade.
For those who are looking for where Africa is, it's
this lower corner.
It's the blue lower corner.
Yes, it's about 3%. It's about 3 trillion out of the 105 trillion. Now, why is this interesting? It's interesting because it means that if we find a way to ensure that Africa does more trade, we would actually increase our contribution to the global GDP. If we find a way to ensure that it's easier to move goods within the continent from one place to another, to buy, to sell, we'll just increase our GDP and would actually make our continent a lot richer. So it's not because we don't have a population. We have a young population that actually is the youngest population in the world. The fastest adopters of technologies in the world are the young Africans. Somehow, regardless of that, we're less than 3% of global GDP. Why? We don't trade enough. Now, the question you ask yourself is, how has trade grown over time? Usually what's happened with trade over time is trade has grown by increase in capital goods, improvement in labor force, innovation in technology, or improvement in productivity. Meaning, if we want to grow our GDP, we need to find a way to ensure that, one, we improve our labor force, meaning people can do more with the young population. Today, the statistic says that about 60% of Africa's population is under the age of 30. So you have a strong young population that can learn technology, that can do interesting work. You also learn very quickly that the way to grow your GDP over time is by improving technology, meaning applying technology to ensure that you can make more advances and then ensure that you can be more productive. Now, but that leads to the other thing, which is that what you want to do with digital technology over time is to ensure that you basically, as Africa goes around this digital transformation journey, you can use disruptive technology to ensure that Africa can trade more. An example, and 2 or 3 examples I'll give of them. One of them is mobile money. An example is Kenya. What Kenya has done with M-Pesa and mobile money, it's simply just ensure that suddenly you can go to a rural area somewhere in Kenya and someone can buy and sell. And that is an example of how you use technology to revolutionize trade. Now the question is, can we do the same thing with moving goods around on the continent? Because we've done that, we've seen that. Today, when you think of global payments, Africa contributes about 80 to 90% of mobile payments in the world. So the big question is, can we do more of that in other parts that matter, such as trade? Now, the current landscape, and I think maybe I should jump to this slide. So when you think of it, the big challenge that you start to face is, on the continent, there's this whole issue of the digital shift, where you have some set of people who know how to use technology, and you have a large bulk of people that don't know how to use technology. You also have an example of policies not clear. What's the policy? Is the government going to spend more money investing in this or not? It's a very vague policy framework. There's a lot of policy gap, and there's an issue even about ownership of data. So when you say you're moving data around the continent, who owns what? It's a big question around that constantly rises. But the interesting thing is that more than ever, we're in a very interesting place where we can use technology and write policy to create so much prosperity on the continent. Why? The reason is that right now, we're actually negotiating a digital trade protocol for the continent. So in 2018, the AU signed the agreement to create the AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And in February 2020 of that year, the heads of governments agreed to create a new protocol on digital trade. And negotiations on that started in December of last year. And so now, there is actually a negotiation happening for digital trade on the continent. Okay, yeah, fantastic. Right, on the continent. So the big question is, what is that protocol supposed to do? The protocol is supposed to create a single framework for ensuring that we can move and have a single system for digital trade on the continent. And I'll show this slide that I think is an interesting slide. The aim is to do this. The aim is to ensure that through digital trade protocol, you can create an harmonized digital economy for the continent, and because of that, lead to digital growth. And why is that important? Today, the biggest chunk of sales and business is happening online. People are getting visas online. People are buying goods from Amazon online. People are paying school fees online. Everything has moved digital. So the question is, how do we create an harmonized digital economy for the continent? How do we ensure that, for the sake of digital trade, the continent looks like one? From South Africa to Kenya to Ghana to Comoros, it looks like one. And that's what the digital trade protocol is supposed to do. Create that system of ensuring that you have one digital trade protocol, one digital economy for the continent. And it matters because when I want to move goods, you want your small businessman, whether they're in Zimbabwe or whether they're in Tanzania, to be able to go online and say, I'm supplying goods to everybody around the world that needs my goods. You want people to be able to say, I'm a business person in Nigeria and maybe even a village in Ghana, but I can sell my goods everywhere on the continent easily. And so I like to say that the counterpart to the AFCFTA is two big infrastructure. One of them is digital trade, the other is the post. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, where does the post come in? No matter how much you do with trade, no matter how the nice fancy things you do, today you need to move services and you need to move what? Goods. When you need to move goods, you need to deal with two people. You need to deal with the borders and you need to deal with the post. Why does that matter? Globally today, nobody in the world does last mile delivery like the post. When you go to villages, when you go to rural areas, places where the most advanced technology has not reached, you will find some post office not too far away from there. And why is that? Because it's historical, it's entrenched, it's existed for years. So the big question is this: how can we use that infrastructure that existed for years and layer on it digital tech and ensure that we can get products around the world to the places that need it within the continent? How do we ensure that we can help e-commerce grow faster using the post office? For instance, can I be a trader and can I go to a website and can I pay for something online and know that I can get it to my post office and they'll get it to the last mile for me? Why does this matter? And I'll skip my slide 1 minute to just show you a slide. This, a day in the life of the US Post Office. The US Postal Service processes 421 million mails per day. I'll say that again. 421 million pieces of mail per day. That's not in a month. Every day, 421 million pieces of items are delivered by the US Post. That means that every hour, 17.6 million items are delivered. The US Postal Services generate 260 million every day. Now, it makes sense why the US economy is it owns 25% of the world. Because I can start a business in the US today and not have to think about logistics. Why? I can trust and rely on the Postal Service. I can start a business today in the US and not have to think about, and when you think of some of the biggest things to think of the continent today, whether it's remittances, most of these are built on the back of Postal Service. So the last thing I'll say is, there's a big role.
1.5 minutes.
I'm wrapping up. This is my last slide. There's a big role that the Postal Services does in last mile delivery, in inclusion, ensuring that whether you're in a village or you're in a city, you can get services, ensuring that you can distribute your products, ensuring that there's trust and credibility, meaning, because people know the post, I may not know your name, I may not know Tola, but I know the posters, I know Papu, and so I will trust the service. Network effects, ensuring that you don't have to know all the post offices in the world. All you need to know is the post office that's nearest to you, and that's all that matters. And lastly, it's a key trade infrastructure. You can't build the infrastructure and the contents we want without thinking of the role of the post, and ensure that people can piggyback on the back of the post. Having said all that, I think my conclusion is simple. The aim of digital trade protocol is to create an harmonized digital economy, which in turn will lead to digital trade growth, which in turn will lead to digital trade volumes and ensure that we have prosperity on the continent. But one of the key infrastructure we need to make that happen remains the postal network. And the big question is, how can we piggyback on that to deliver a continent that works for everyone? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you can just, maybe if you can, somebody can get you a seat. You don't go back there, sit next to me for just a little while. Nobody can do it like the post office because of history. If somebody can get him a seat next to me here, nobody can do it like the post office because it has a history, it has trust, it has done it. What we have seen increasingly is less capitalization of our postal systems, so much so that trust has gone down. Deliveries sometimes don't get there in time or in the sort of frame in which we would like to see them. And so for the African continent, I'd like to have your take, honorable ministers, in terms of how we can recapitalize the post office for purposes of ensuring that business runs smoothly, and also, reestablishing the trust network that the post office has always had as a government institution. And also, you know, part of what is mentioned is that for you to do meaningful business, it's got to be increases in capital goods, improvement in labor force, innovations in technology, and improvements in productivity. So let me have your experience from South Africa, how you think we can, governments can help recapitalize the postal systems for purposes of business.
Thank you very much, Mr. Omo. And we're also grateful to an exciting presentation by Victor Wanayemi, how he actually re-energized and re-excited us on the relevance of post office sector going forward. Quickly, we had to confront two questions here: recapitalization and partnership, and how do we close the gaps? Well, a snapshot: South Africa's post office has been reliant on government funding on what we refer to as reserved services. For instance, everything 1 kilogram below is supposed to be delivered historically by a post office, and quite a regulated sort of sector in as far as that weight is concerned. And anything beyond 1 kilogram historically has been open to competition. For instance, our regulation would have prescribed that 10,000 inhabitants per post office is what is recommended, and a radius of 5 to 10 kilometers for that purpose. Now, this sort of approach provided for what we refer to as cross-subsidization. In other words, post offices that are in far-flung areas which would not have had the capacity to carry cost of offering those services to fewer people, but because of this reserved 1 kilogram and below, everyone has access. But we have confronted challenges, as Secretary General: the decline in mail-in volumes, for instance, letters, stamps, and post boxes, due to technological advancements in the communication industry, which has led to reduced profits for the post office. Inefficiencies of the post office to deliver on what we refer to as universal service obligation resulted in a loss of revenue and customers moving to competitors. It has been proven, though, in spite of that experience, that an efficient and reliable post office actually do get utilized and get to generate revenue. We also accept that the old business models and infrastructure, Emma has already spoken at length about this, are no longer working. Customers are moving towards the better quality services. Customers are choosing quality and reliability of service over affordability. Now, what are our solutions? Quickly. South Africa has gone for what we refer to as 5-pillar approach: logistics, centers. South Africa happened to be a logistics center for a number of postal services, like especially the physical services, not only for South Africa, for SADC as a whole. We are beginning to accept that we need to be organized as a modern logistical hub, also with regard to the partnership in that area. E-commerce platform, which makes it easy even for SMMEs to actually be able to trade from wherever they are with the entire world, as Emma has spoken about it. And also authentication authority centers as a trust centers and digital business hubs. What we mean by digital business hubs is that in the far-flung areas, you are able to establish a center that offer all these services within a kilometer and 50 meters to ordinary people, downloading emails, doing printing, and doing everything, providing it to individuals and SMEs. That is the direction South Africa is taking. But we know for that to succeed, capacity and capability in the area of operations, payment channels, cashless payment solutions, and requisite skills is critical. Modernization and digitization of all these operations is critical. Strategic partnership in the technology, financial services, property development, e-commerce, prioritizing leasing of space in government services. Lastly, on the partnership, we are saying, you've spoken about last mile delivery. We agree with all the issues that you've raised. We are beginning to realize that you need also, although postal service has been key in the last mile delivery services, efficiencies have to improve in that area. Relationship with other governments in as far as, for instance, motor vehicle licenses, delivery of medicine, delivery of stationery, birth certificate and application, partnership with e-commerce providers. For instance, your Tikalot, we are able to find ways, if Tikalot would actually, we're able to compete with all those who interact with Tikalot and actually improve cost for those who are actually the last recipients of that service. Generally, that's the direction of the 5 pillars that we're taking. We agree that we have to modernize, we have to move with time, we have to go digital, and again, we know unless we connect our people digitally, unless we ensure that it's a meaningful connectivity, ensuring that they have got Wi-Fi, ensuring that they have got data, ensuring that they have got devices that are able to assist them. And again, I want to repeat that this is where South Africa is going, and thank Victor for such an illuminating presentation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I couldn't stop you for reasons that you know very well. You are my boss. And all of you are. So I don't know how I will be stopping my bosses, but I'm requesting we stick to time. Just the experience of Malawi, and in particular, Honorable Kunkuyu, how we can, whether PPPs, post office systems and networks, partnering with other service providers, is the panacea that would unlock the potential of Malawi Post.
Thank you very much. As a way of introduction further, allow me to say that Malawi, just like our colleagues or many other governments, we have for a long time relied on the traditional ways of running our postal services, where there hasn't been that much usage of ICT, which is just emerging now as the way that we must go if we are really to remain relevant as a postal sector. The effects that have come on the postal sector, which is traditionally the well-known mode of basic communication in as far as the sending of postal goods and messages is concerned, has been dealt a blow with the emerging of technologies and other modes of communication. So we agree as Malawi that the only way that we can leapfrog and catch up with other grown economies and also be able to remain relevant is to embrace ICT and digitalization. There is no two ways about that. And in Malawi, we have about 180 post offices. Most of these post offices are in the remote areas. So when we talk of the coming in of other modes of sending messages, you can see that we have pieces of infrastructure that are lying idle, that are not put to the use that they were intended to.
Sorry, Waziri, the audience is requesting that you project your voice just a little bit, and even for my subsequent speakers, they can hardly hear you.
At the same time, I would also request those that are on the control decks to at least adjust their volume a little bit.
Thank you very much. I think it's mutual. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I was saying, these post offices that we have, if we are not careful, would be of no use in a very short period of time. And we are, as government, recognizing the fact that access to communication services is a human right. And Malawi government owns all these, is the only shareholder of the post offices in the country. that's regulated obviously by the regulator, that is Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority. And our role as government is to provide policy direction, but also a whole of other policies like the Malawi National Digitalization Policy and the National Postal Policy. Under the National Digitalization Policy, we are looking at ICT infrastructure development, but also universal access to ICT and ICT services, but also digitalization, research, innovation, and development. While under the National Postal Policy, we're looking at universal postal services and access, research, innovation, and technology, but also collaborating with stakeholders at national and also international level. Now, what plans do we have, what interventions do we have, responding to your question, John, and if the PPP arrangement is the model that we can go by? We are ensuring that we have internet connectivity first in those post offices that I said are in the remote areas. If there is no connectivity, then we cannot embrace the digitalization that we are talking about. So the post offices will remain of no use in the near future. So under the partnership between the public and the private, that's the Public-Private Partnership Commission, the Malawi government is connecting all these post offices to the internet. The first phase will see 48 post offices being connected. We're ensuring that there is broadband connectivity so that people and those services that are being offered in there can be accessed at a lower but also reliable, at a lower cost, but also in a reliable form. But also, you know that to connect these post offices or to connect these infrastructures and other government institutions, we need power. There is no way we can go digital if there is no power. And most of those areas that are in the remote, they have no power. There is this challenge. So we are connecting these post offices to the national power grid through other partnerships so that they will be able to uptake ICT and digitalize their operations, thereby turning around the whole the model in which under which we have run these post offices to a more applicable model that moves with the times of today. And we have also ensured as government that we give space to the post offices on the national data centers, that they have their servers space in the national data centers. In that way, we're giving them a platform through which they can tap from, they can connect with other government entities and be able to embrace digitalization at a national level. I wanted to say this, John, as we are talking of turning around the model, or choosing a different model for running our post offices so that we can be relevant with the times of today, we should not run away from the fact that as African countries, where there is no internet access, then all these aspirations that we are having will be mere talk. We can talk, attend conferences, but if one country is connected and another is not connected, then Africa is not connected. Okay, yeah. You see now what I was talking about. You will see that you will send a parcel, it gets tracked digitally from the termination point, but you will not be able to track your parcel as it is approaching Malawi, because Malawi is not connected. You say Malawi is a landlocked country. So all these interventions that we are talking about, if we do not connect Africa, if we do not connect all these countries, I'm telling you, we'll be attending these conferences at the end of the day, will not be reaping much. Allow me just a minute. I know you are holding the mic, so they stop me. I wanted to emphasize on this, on my, press it on my fellow ministers. Africa is one, and Africa can be one again. It was one until some people sat around the table and say, let's take this portion, take that portion. Today, we are saying the undersea cables are landing in Tanzania, they land in Mozambique, they land in Namibia, but there is no access to Malawi, to Zambia, and other land-linked countries. If we do not connect these portions of land, then we do not connect Africa. The parcels will be stuck somewhere. The postal service will not be revamped because some parts of the continent are not connected. So let's work towards connecting the whole continent. I want to thank my Minister of Tanzania we signed what you're calling a diplomatic data corridors in Malawi when Her Excellency visited Malawi. That is the route that we must be taking as African states. Tanzania has the cables landing on the seashore. Through Tanzania, Malawi also feels that the cables are landing in Malawi. The same should be the case for the entirety of African continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Actually, I was not holding the mic to stop you, but wants to ask a parcel from Dar es Salaam to Lilongwe. Is not just through a postal system. If it's coming from overseas, it's also through a customs. There are customs procedures and other logistical system service systems providers across. So I think what you're saying, having signed with your colleague, also involves, the customs that are in charge of inspection and other organizations, government organizations. Honorable Minister from Liberia, the floor is yours.
No, this is going to be fine. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. We want to firstly express thanks on behalf of the Liberian delegation to the government people of Tanzania for the warm hospitality, and we want to thank Chief Moyo and staff for a very excellent organization. Having said that, Liberia, as you well know, may be Africa's oldest country, but Liberia is in post-conflict recovery stage, and we are preparing and moving into a take-off stage and getting ourselves into the digitalization revolution. Against such background, we would like to share with you some of the ways our administration is addressing some of the service delivery issues under the government theme development initiative called the Propo Agenda for Development. The focus thrust of President WIA's program is availability, access, and connectivity are key in the provision and expansion of postal services. So we have infrastructure over time, dating from in the 50s, and those infrastructure has been renovated and revamped to give ourselves the necessary takeover. Colleagues, when we took over the portfolio a few months ago, we realized that the challenge facing Liberia was unique and that the challenge facing a lot of other countries would not be uniform because of different levels of development and stages of growth. What we have seen is that we see a correlation between universal access in telecommunication and our endeavor to take service to the people. One policy option that is available is a synergy between our postal administration and Liberia Universal Access Program to guarantee broadband connectivity for service. This option is being aggressively pursued in that in the last 5 years under the Propo development, we have been constructing towers in rural areas to increase connectivity through the Universal Access Fund which are shared. There have been traditional constraints to our drive to providing top or inclusive services to our people in the postal sector. We have limited all-weather road access and poor electricity connectivity. However, today, these are being addressed aggressively. Power supply has been escalated with few private companies developing transmission network as government has dissolved the monopoly. We are participating in a regional ECOWAS power sharing initiative through the CSLG from neighboring Ivory Coast, which is mitigating power shortages in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. And since the power comes through rural areas, we are able to connect our postal offices to more stable and clean energy. We are also benefiting solar power through assistance from the Chinese government and other partners. Additionally, consistent with the policy of modernization, Liberia is participating in the Amika Cabral submarine cable project along Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau, and Gambia to give Liberia a second submarine cable supply route. Part of government policy is public-private partnership, and under that, the private company called C-Square, is giving Liberia additional 350 kilometers of fiber backbone for rural areas. We also have tax waiver and tax incentive for private companies that are investing in the sector. So you will see that for us in Liberia, our tax is cashing on the untapped resources by transforming the infrastructural investment that we inherited and using it as a foundation for innovative modernization through digitalization. So the Liberia postal system, as it is current, is addressing those issues. Our system, which includes a network of post offices across the country, is being reordered, and it's also being revamped and redirected to provide services. The electricity and the increased access road connectivity is giving the Postal Administration the opportunity to increase services to our people. With improving sustainable broadband connectivity and access to clean electricity, we in Liberia are poised to further expand the frontier of our economic activities and become integrated in the global trade as we concomitantly embark on a 5-year development program to ensure total recovery. For us, we see opportunities for innovative services based on technology for our people. At this takeoff stage and in this recovery stage, we have also signed agreement with private companies for a digital address system and for financial services at our windows. These are still at the primary stage, but it shows the intention in a post-conflict country to move things ahead and to catch up. While we are not just playing catch up, we are committed by policy to public-private partnership and creating more incentive for investment. Like it is said in Liberia, what helps a community is working together. And so Liberia is committed to working with other countries that are ahead and other countries that we are at the same level of development in the sector to go ahead. And I want to thank you, Mr. Moderator, that as a country, our postal system is there and is moving ahead as we are expanding the rural area. And these services that we have contracted are expanding to our people. And our people are at a stage, and the system is at a stage that it can offer better services for us and can be integrated to our people because of we are sharing electricity cross-border, and also we are having a second option of submarine cable. And Liberia is poised in 2-3 years' time to be at a stage where we want it to be and to be able to make the forward progress that is necessary for our country. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. I think you confirm what your counterpart from Malawi says, the sort of correlation between access to ICT services and improvement in other auxiliary services such as, provision of government services such as postal. And so if we see improvement in access to ICT services, then there's corresponding improvement in other services. PS from Cameroon, 4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Thank you, the moderator, for giving me the floor. As it is the first time for Cameroon to take the floor today, permit me first of all to extend the deep appreciations of Cameroon to the leaders of UPAB, UPU, and all the member countries for the efforts that they are doing to digitalize our activities. I am representing, as I said earlier, the Minister of Post and Telecommunications, who wanted to be with us here, but she's avoidably absent because she's busy preparing the City of Commonwealth that will take place in October in Cameroon. Yesterday, if you remember, we discussed deeply concerning the transformations of postal services. We have to digitalize because digitalizations now it is a constraint. It is a revolution. It is compulsory. All of us, we have to do it. I just want to remind you, UPU and African Union, UPAB, since Bucharest in 2004, and the strategy of 2016, Abidjan 2021, all those strategies was focusing on digitalizations. That is why my country, Cameroon, have decided to put in place a gigantic project that we call ePost. ePost has many components, and we have 4 actually levels in which we are implementing these revolutions. Avec votre permission, je voudrais vous dire que d'abord au niveau stratégique, la plus haute autorité de l'État au Cameroun a mis l'emphase sur la digitalisation des activités postales, étant entendu que la poste est au cœur du développement même de l'économie du Cameroun. À ce niveau, aujourd'hui, plus de 90% des bureaux de poste sont interconnectés par fibre optique ou bien par VSAT. Et à côté de cette interconnexion, la Cameroon Postal Services a mis en place une data center. Cette data center aujourd'hui est le centre où la plupart des administrations, des activités, des affaires viennent conserver leurs données, viennent même à distance, si vous voulez consulter leurs données. Et cette data center aujourd'hui sert à plusieurs, ce n'est pas seulement au niveau des activités de la Poste, mais c'est des activités également qui sont mises à la disposition de toutes les parties prenantes au Cameroun. Au-delà des data centers, il y a également d'autres plateformes collaboratives qui sont mises en place. Au deuxième niveau, il faudrait également dire que toutes les infrastructures qu'ils ont mises en place sont aujourd'hui optimisées. L'optimisation de ces infrastructures a permis au Cameroun particulièrement de mettre en place un dispositif que nous appelons le NPSI, le National Payment Infrastructure. Et ce dispositif aujourd'hui est en même temps un dispositif qui permet à tous les citoyens camerounais, quel que soit l'endroit où ils se trouvent, quelles que soient les institutions financières où ils ont leur compte ou non, de réaliser des activités commerciales et autres à partir des codes USSD. Donc c'est une infrastructure mise en place pour matérialiser cette digitalisation et qui permet à chaque partie prenante, à partir de ce code-là, d'avoir toute la clientèle de toutes les banques, de toutes les institutions nationales et de toutes les institutions financières. Mais en même temps, ce dispositif permet de contrôler la lutte contre le blanchiment d'argent. C'est ce dispositif qui permet de contrôler toutes les transactions financières et c'est la Poste aujourd'hui qui porte cet important projet. Et troisièmement, je voudrais parler d'un autre niveau aujourd'hui que nous avons atteint au Cameroun et qui est important et qui peut être partagé. Il y a un projet gigantesque financé par la Banque mondiale qui concerne l'accélération de la transformation numérique du Cameroun. Et ce projet est en train de mettre la Poste au centre de développement particulièrement de l'agriculture et de l'élevage. Et c'est d'ailleurs, comme le Cameroun est à 70% un pays rural, ce dispositif permet à la Poste aujourd'hui d'être l'interface principale pour développer des activités agricoles et bien d'autres activités. En fin de compte, comme le temps est très limité, je ne peux pas aller plus loin, mais nous pensons qu'aujourd'hui, il est important de remettre sur la table au niveau de l'UPAP et même au niveau de l'UPU le problème des services postaux universels, qui n'est pas toujours bien réglementé dans tous les pays. Il faut le remettre sur la table. Il faut remettre sur la table la question de l'énergie, surtout dans les zones rurales, la question de l'énergie pour permettre une bonne digitalisation. Et d'autres l'ont dit avant moi, les honorables ministres ici, la connectivité. C'est pour ça que c'est très important. At the end of my remarks, I would like to say that today we are very proud because we are united. As we are united here, we have already, the different member countries have succeeded to digitize their different activities by digitizations of our different process. And in addition, we have also digitalized those processes again by optimizing their utilizations. I am thinking that today the challenge is how to get to digital transformations with creating value added, with creating more jobs, more employment. In the end, at the end of the day, we think that digitalizations constitute today a global challenge. To global challenge, we think that together we can reach the global solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PS. I take it that the idea of optimizing government infrastructure so that government is one, and the post office being the government being the main shareholder in postal systems and services, the post office being part and parcel of that one government, then makes the post office have more value in terms of its businesses. And hence, what I'd like to hear from you again, PS, before I get to speaker, is how you're managing the PPPs in Cameroon, and whether you think this is the way to go. How you're managing PPPs in the postal systems, and whether you think that's the way to go, or the government of Cameroon will still be, going it on its own.
Merci pour votre question. Le partenariat public-privé au Cameroun aujourd'hui, la plupart des plateformes dont je vous ai parlé, le gouvernement a mis en place l'infrastructure, mais la plupart de ces plateformes, ce sont des privés qui mettent en place ces dispositifs-là, et le gouvernement accompagne ce processus. D'ailleurs, pour atteindre la plupart de nos clientèles, le développement aujourd'hui est porté par ce secteur privé que nous accompagnons également. Merci de me donner cette occasion de repréciser. À cause du temps, on aurait pu aller plus loin à ce stade. Je vous remercie.
All right, thank you very much. I want to get back to you, the audience, in terms of whether, because our time is gone, the gentlemen, unfortunately we have no lady, but these gentlemen are the ones in charge of managing your policy systems in terms of how PPPs can be of assistance in revitalizing and re-energizing postal systems. And so I want to get back to you to see whether you think the sort of initiatives in our respective countries are responding to this challenge, and whether there are other things that you think our countries can do better, which we are not doing. I know, for example, in Algeria, and sorry, PS, to highlight Algeria, the delivery of government services is largely still done through the post office, whether it's pensions, whether it's, any aspect of financial services. So if that then adds to the business of the postal systems as opposed to leaving that sort of delivery purely in private hands. I'm in your hands if I can get your questions before I get back to my panelists to give their concluding remarks. I saw something come up, but I didn't see it properly. That is Uganda. We'll take a couple of questions, then answer them at a go. Uganda, please. Can a mic go to Uganda? Just carry your placard up again so that they can see you. Can a mic get there? Okay, take mine here. All right. Over there, please carry it up so that they can see you. Yes, keep carrying it up. Go ahead, sir. Briefly, make it brief.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I hope I'm audible enough.
Just speak up. Just speak up a little bit.
I'm really trying my best. Thank you, sir. I hope I can be heard. We do thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, for raising the pertinent issues regarding funding of the post offices. We also appreciate the immense contribution from the ministers in charge of the posts. The sticky problem of the posts dates back to their formation in the 90s. The assumptions made then about funding the post offices did not hold out. That they would be funded by revenues from the reserved services. That didn't hold out at all. That the universal obligation, the obligation to maintain services in areas that are not profitable would be funded through regular mail distribution. Again, that failed. Mr. Moderator, as you still hold the session, could we consider a policy shift, given that the supervisors of the Ministry of the Posts and regulators are in one room? One, let member countries engage in a bilateral dialogue between posts and regulators, have policies that enhance funding of the post offices. One example is waiver of fees, license fees. The other is consideration for annual funding for the cost of the universal service obligation. But there will be others different from country to country. But as a priority, Mr. Moderator, could we have a commitment that let there be a dialogue between those two on a policy level, and that the ministers would consider such consideration for annual funding of the post offices? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. We'll take that as a take-home. We'll take that as a take-home. But any of the ministers or the PS can respond to that. Any other? I see my controller is already on the podium. Any other? All right, I see. Yes, we'll take that last one. Keep it up, please. Keep it up so that the mic can get to you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le modérateur, pour m'avoir accordé la parole. Le représentant de la République démocratique du Congo. Je tiens d'abord à féliciter les excellences pour leur présentation et leur déclinaison de leur stratégie qu'ils ont eu à adopter pour pouvoir donc accélérer la transformation du secteur postal. Et donc dans leurs interventions, il y a plusieurs axes qu'ils ont eu à décliner. Et donc le premier axe où ils sont tous revenus, c'est sur la connectivité, qui est un élément capital, catalyseur, pour pouvoir donc accélérer cette transformation, que ce soit au niveau de commerce électronique, que ce soit au niveau de tout ce qui est donc commerce au niveau des services que la Poste devrait donc délivrer sur le plan du numérique. Alors ma question ou ma préoccupation est celle donc de savoir au niveau de chaque pays, parce que quand on parle de la connectivité est toujours aujourd'hui tributaire de l'électricité. Et ça, c'est au niveau de la connectivité. Alors, je voulais savoir quelle est l'approche qu'ils ont adoptée pour pouvoir résoudre ces problèmes de l'électricité qui, in fine, ça a des répercussions sur même les coûts de service. Le deuxième volet de ma question ou de ma préoccupation est celle de pouvoir demander au niveau du commerce électronique où la Poste doit jouer un rôle. Il y a le volet où les marchandises doivent passer par les douanes. Là aussi, il y a un problème parce que c'est un autre secteur qui intervient. Quelle est la stratégie ou la politique que vous avez adoptée pour pouvoir résoudre ce problème? Parce que c'est un problème crucial où les États, à travers les différents ministères, je ne sais pas quelle est l'approche collaborative que vous avez mise en place. Si cette approche collaborative est adoptée, dites-nous de quelle manière cela arrive donc à impacter sur l'évolution l'évolution du commerce à travers donc la Poste. Merci, Monsieur le modérateur, de m'avoir accordé la parole.
Thank you very much. We'll reserve the customs and the integration of other government services to Malawi, and then the power and connectivity to either Cameroon and South Africa or Liberia. I am constraining to give Kenya the floor, but 1 minute. 1 minute, kindly. 1 minute. Keep it to 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, moderator. The moderator is a very good friend of mine. Spent 20 years together working and 3 years together at the University of Nairobi. It's always a pleasure listening to him. Very straightforward question. Honorable ministers and peers, you have all pointed out that the basic letter was carved out as an area of exclusivity for the designated postal operator, with the expectation that it would enable them marshal enough resources to fund universal service. Is there merit in redefining that component of universal service to incorporate the new realities of e-commerce and logistics? That is my question. Thank you.
I'll leave that to the ministers too. So let's stop it there and start with our wrap-up, so that in your wrap-up you kindly also respond to those concerns. We'll take the concern by Uganda as a take-home, so that it could be one of our recommendations for this session. So let me start with you. In terms of how good businesses are run, does our interventions on how the postal systems, we can revamp our postal systems through the PPPs, meet your criteria?
That's put him in a very tight spot. But I think I'll just say three things. I think the first thing I would say is, one interesting idea that has come up over and over again is this readiness to expand the base of what the postal service is. I've heard the minister from Cameroon, the Prime Minister from Cameroon talk about financial services. I've heard the minister from South Africa talk about financial services. And I think that's an important part. The big question is, can we make the postal service an integral part of people's lives by thinking of the things they need today and using this as a base to supply that? And that's an interesting conversation about increasing the use of the postal service for that. I think the second thing that strikes out to me is this question of efficiency, right? So something South African minister said that I think is incredibly important is, people need to trust the post office to keep using it. If people think I can't trust that my item will get there on time, they would find more expensive alternatives. And even when your service improves, they wouldn't realize. And so the second big question is, how do we ensure that rather than try to offer all kinds of services, you pick 1-2 things that you can become exceptionally good at? You know, there's a popular phrase that one of my favorite business people say. He says, it's better to have 2 people that love your business than to have 100 people that kind of like your business. Right? And what you want to do is you want to find 1-2 things that they love you for because you're the best at doing it. And over time, when you add other things to it, they become better. And that's kind of my rule around it. Thank you.
Pamsek, let's start with you. Any rejoinder or closing comment?
Merci, monsieur le modérateur, de me passer la parole. Je crois que il y a le problème des services universels, comme je l'ai dit dans mon propos, qui revient, et nous pensons que véritablement c'est cela qui plombe la plupart de nos postes africaines. Il est temps qu'au niveau de l'UPAP et à toutes les instances, que ce problème soit discuté pour trouver définitivement une solution à cela, ce qui va permettre de combiner l'efficacité et la couverture universelle. Mais en même temps, il y a le problème des tarifications. Dans la plupart de nos pays, ce problème de tarification existe et il était important que nous mettions également l'emphase là-dessus. Nous avons parlé du problème de l'énergie. Qu'est-ce qui est fait dans le gouvernement? Par exemple, au niveau du Cameroun, au niveau de la Poste aujourd'hui, on est en train d'expérimenter l'énergie solaire qu'on est en train de vouloir développer. Il y a un gros projet, un important projet de solarisation des différents bureaux de poste et nous pensons que c'est l'une des solutions, mais comme je l'ai indiqué, c'est des challenges, c'est des défis globaux. Il était important que ce soit discuté à notre niveau ici pour trouver des solutions durables et définitives. Il y a la question, même aujourd'hui, avec la convergence, il y a ce problème des textes digitalisés. On est d'accord. Nous avons combiné. On a la banque, on a un certain nombre d'infrastructures aujourd'hui. Il est bon de revoir également notre législation pour l'adapter à ce nouvel environnement digital qui a aussi des textes particuliers. C'est pour ça qu'au niveau du Cameroun aujourd'hui, on est en train de mettre en place un projet de co-régulation, que ce soit les télécoms, que ce soit les services financiers, que ce soit les services postaux. Il y a une co-régulation qui s'impose à cause de l'inclusion numérique. Voilà quelques éléments que je voulais apporter par rapport aux différentes préoccupations. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, PS. Honorable Minister from Liberia.
Thank you very much, moderator and co-panelists. In summing up, I think in direct response to the inquiry from the DRC, the power sharing agreement in the West African region, especially in the Mano River Union between Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Ivory Coast, is such that it assures you of sustained electricity, which is actually the bedrock for digitalization and connectivity, because you know electricity all of the time. So like now, we have rainy season in Liberia. We are now selling electricity to Ivory Coast and other countries. In January and February, we will be buying from them. But the lands are all connected. We are also working on the project through a public-private partnership that will connect up with the Ivorian internet fiber through our border. And that will also assure us of continuous and a good quality connectivity. So those are some of the things that is happening there. But over time, the investment in the postal system by government is there in Liberia, is available, including the budgetary support. The challenge is the postal operators, the DG and other, to maximize it. But government remain committed to that. Thank you very much.
Honorable Kunkuyu, the customs question and integration with other, services offered by government.
Thank you very much. As I did say earlier, where we do not have connectivity, then there are multiplier effects. there is need to harmonize our legal instruments that govern our customs procedures so that we are in harmony in the region. There is a need for us to take advantage of the regional trade blocks that are there. Like I did give the example of Malawi and Tanzania, the agreement that we have gone into, there was the political will at the top. When you have the presidents, the ministers expressing their political will not to neglect the stronger foundations that we laid through the post offices and jumping onto the fast moving train of telecoms, then definitely the foundations will die. So what I will call upon our leaders to embrace is to make sure that there is that top leadership, political will at the top level. Because once there is that political will at the top level, all these pieces that we are discussing here all fall into place. We cannot have regional trade blocks if the political leaders are not for it. We cannot harmonize our laws regionally so that they speak to each other across the borders if the leaders at the top are not for it. So my strong call will be to our leaders to have that political will at the top, not to neglect the firm foundations that were laid by the traditional means of trading, but running to jump onto the fast-moving train of telecoms and ignoring the firmer foundations that we had laid. Politics at the top, there must be that willingness by our leaders to embrace the change and making sure that they grease the wheels of the change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fortunately, you are a political leader, so you are speaking to yourself. Honorable Minister, energy, integration of ensuring that energy is available, because without energy there cannot be internet connectivity and tracing of parcels or systems within the postal systems, rather.
Thank you very much. I think, I'm sure a lot of you know now that our country is going through a huge challenge of energy availability. But I can reassure you, we are beginning to turn around that. It has proven, okay? It has proven during this period of load shedding, the centrality of energy to connectivity, empowering telecommunication, the cost of business, and all those issues. If there's a time we had to learn lessons, what's going on? It's you guys. So, if there's a time we had to learn a lesson, is the cost energy has caused to our country in terms of general economic development. So, to telcos, we've been exposed, SG, to the fact that they, instead of focusing on efficient delivery of information, they have to buy batteries, they have to provide security for batteries and all those kind of things. And then you shift their cost. Now, for instance, in connecting South Africa, we wanted them to also do what we call universal obligation connectivity. But because a lot of their services are getting diverted, it's another issue that we're dealing with. So the issue of energy, we want to say upfront, remains central. And again, I want to support the view that says the seamless co-regulation across Africa is going to be key, because unless we free trade in Africa, unless we free the flow of information. Lastly, the point of partnership in South Africa is informed by the following. We want to interact and partner with anyone who helps us to improve the speed, the scale, and the cost. So whoever relate with us so that our people can benefit from the cost point of view. That's why we're emphasizing that if you do not deliver those issues, the scale, the cost, and the speed, our people prefer costly services instead of the least cost, instead of the regulated services. They prefer the reliable services in terms of these three issues. So lastly, I say lastly for the second time, we just use the Model C issue. You find that you have got a no-fee school policy and a fee school policy. The tendency, if no-fee school policy does not provide quality and reliability, people they leave the no-fee school and go to the costly one because of the reliability in terms of cost, speed, and other issues and so on. So we've been able to gain a lot from our ministers here and then from the audience. Again, the issue of delivering these as designated post office particular services, we've actually realized that if there's efficiency, there's reliability, post offices are able to increase their revenue, and the far-flung people and the poor people are able to actually rely on us. Unless we turn those issues around, we've got a long way to go, but there's a lot of take-homes here that we've come across. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, PAMSEC and Honorable Ministers, for your time, and the audience certainly for giving us your time too and skill, expertise rather. I think whether the issue of underfunding because of reserved letters or funding of USF obligations, or lack of integration, what we call one government, the need for integrated planning has come out, the need for interconnection and taking advantage of our trading blocks as Africa, the need for political will, the need to ensure that we have reliable, auxiliary infrastructure services that would support the post office. I do say that the PPPs may not be the only panacea, but certainly it's an important clog in the wheel that can turn the post offices around. What is required, I think Honorable Kunkuyu has summarized it, is the will. Systems don't fail. It is the people who implement systems that fail. If the post office is failing, it is not because the post office is not capable of making business, but because we who are managing the systems are not managing it or managing it efficiently. Thank you very much for your time, and sorry that we have eaten into the time of the next panel. We want to appreciate you and thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.
A round of applause for the panel. Before you go, we will need a group photo. Yannick, please, for the panelists. I couldn't cut the panel short because of the two reasons. One, the panel was so resourceful, and two, for the obvious reason, and which I won't mention anyway. Yes, that marks the end of the first panel, and we really thank you for the deliberation that you have done to us today and the discussions that you have given us today. Before we proceed to the second panel, I think we have to re-energize ourselves. We have to go for tea, and that tea will take us only 20 minutes that I suggest. We have to be here at 12 sharp. We go on with our next session. A few announcements. Ushers, please, you're supposed to usher the delegates, ministers, permanent secretaries, ambassadors, to where you have been directed to take them through for tea. Other delegates will be having tea on around the lobby as usual. And wale wageni kutoka regional secretariat, please, would be having tea at the marquee, and we really thank you, appreciate for your presence here. Welcome for the tea. The next 20 minutes, we have to be back here for the last tea panel.
Wahenga Tanzania ni kama nyumba, wote tuna haki ya kujenga, so siache mlango wazi ili mgeni apishe hodi, vizazi na vizazi vifaidi matunda ya kodi.
Najivunia Tanzania wenye power, na uaminia huu upendo ndio dawa, tushikilie na usiponyonge, right? Urafiki wetu uendelee, udugu wetu usiangamie.
taifa tulinde vyovyote vile.